So thank you, Ben, to be here in one of our business units, Cajamar, São Paulo.
hmm
This is our distribution center from Selia Full Commerce. Ben, why don't we start? What is your relationship or your line of studies at MIT
hmm
in social media management with e-commerce? How do you see that to kick off? This is what we offer. So
Yes.
I want to connect with the public with this first question.
Yes, Angelo, absolutely. And it's such a pleasure to be here at the distribution center. Incredibly impressive facility. When I think about e-commerce companies using social media, I think the first starting point is answering the question why. What type of value are you seeking to create for your company by using social media? And I encourage every e-commerce company to ask the question, what goal am I seeking to achieve? Am I focused on customer acquisition right now? Is that my priority? Am I focused on driving repeat purchases from my existing customers? Whatever the case may be, you've got to be very clear on what your goal is. And then once you're clear on your goal, then that opens up a lot of different possibilities on how you might use social media. One of the failure modes that I see time and time again with e-commerce companies, as well as with companies across industries, is they have 7, 8, 9, 10 different goals. So they lack prioritization, and that's going to lead to ineffectiveness in social media. Or they have no goal whatsoever. Or maybe the goal is let's just get followers, and that doesn't do much good for the business either. So I think it's an important C-suite level conversation to have around what goals are we trying to achieve, and then how can we use social media to achieve them. You got to start there before doing anything else.
And I have a very important statement that the first order comes from marketing,
Yeah.
which means we acquire the customers using social media, Google, or some other tools.
Yeah.
But the second order or the retaining that customer
Mhm.
will depend on how I deliver the first order, and
Yeah.
it comes from logistics.
Yes.
So, in my thesis at MIT, I was studying these siloed operations, which is the challenges that we face looking to the brands that we operate nowadays. And we are trying to solve that pain by connecting marketing and logistics. How do you see social media as a role, as a goal, play in that connection between those two departments?
Yeah, and by the way, I think, Angelo, your work on trying to connect those two departments, marketing and logistics, is well worth the time, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is deliver a consistent, high quality branded experience to your customers. And that starts with marketing and it's delivered on through logistics. So those two functions need to work very well together. I think the core to any successful customer relationship is credibility. The customer has to have credibility for the brand. And that starts with what the brand is communicating about, the stories that the brand is telling about its products and services. And then whatever products and services they receive after buying them have to deliver on that promise in order to build the credibility with the customer. So I think that's part of the reason why marketing and logistics go hand in hand. It's about making a promise to a customer and then delivering on that promise time and time again. And you need both of those functions to make that happen.
Great. And when we are trying to attract customers using content such as imaging, storytelling,
Yeah.
we have a couple of ways of doing it. We can use images from data banks,
Yeah.
which is you can download from Pinterest and some other social medias, or you can build like a more humanized content, which is like bringing the brand to talk with, some personalization.
Yeah.
Which way do you think plays a better role with social media in terms of increasing conversion.
Yeah. Angela, I'm a big believer that e-commerce companies, especially direct-to-consumer companies, but I would also argue B2B e-commerce companies, have to also think of themselves as media companies, where you create content and stories about your brand and share those stories on social media to build an emotional connection with your customers. That's critical. And by that, I mean it's not just about taking all the products that you would put in a catalog and then putting that catalog on Instagram. No, what we're talking about here is telling stories that bring those products to life, putting a human face on the company, trying again to connect with customers in a deeper, more emotional way. And that's the critical approach. It's not just about transactional marketing, it's about relationship marketing. And so much of that comes from the storytelling approach that you described there. So I'd strongly encourage e-commerce companies to focus a little bit more on that as opposed to just transactional marketing on social media. Just not going to work over the long term.
Recently, I saw a post from one of the most well-known influencers in Brazil. He's an economist. His name is Ricardo Amorim. He was talking about the potential that LinkedIn has for the B2B, and then we can't see many transactions or commercial connections using LinkedIn
Yeah.
with the brands.
Yeah.
Do you believe in that trend in the future? Are they, developing services to use the platform as Instagram to connect companies, or you think it's a different way for, sharing content and connecting with audiences?
Yeah, I think that thesis is sound. We have to remember that B2B companies are also filled with people.
Yeah.
Angelo, it's interesting that you bring up that example. I do believe that if you're managing a brand, one of the critical considerations is how do people perceive your brand? And in my view, brand perception often is reality, right? Just because the reality may be different from the perception, you just have to work with it. You have to understand what that perception is and work with it. In the Ryanair case,
Yeah.
right, they've decided to lean into that perception of being this low cost, no frills, lower on the customer service quality index. And that's been a great advantage for them in social media. It's almost like what you see is what you get. Now, part of that works because they're not trying to be something that they're not,
Yeah.
right? Ryanair is not trying to be the luxury airline,
Yeah.
and that's why it works. Now, if you have a brand that is truthfully trying to be really high end, and you're not being perceived as high end,
Sure.
then you may not be able to do the same Ryanair strategy, and you might have to work hard to change that perception that we are high end. So I think the bottom line is that perception is reality when it comes to branding, and one of the strategic challenges of, are we going to lean into or embrace that perception, or are we going to actively work and try to change it? And there's trade-offs to either decision, but brand managers constantly have to consider them.
If you could tell us a couple of metrics that tells us if we are succeeding in the strategy of social media management,
Yeah.
what would be those the most important ones that you recommend?
Yeah, so the most important thing regarding metrics, Angelo, and I'm glad you asked this, is that the metrics have to be tied to the specific goal that you're trying to achieve. That is first and foremost absolutely critical in social media management. Too often I have seen in my career that companies just focus only on followers as a key metric of success. And I'll sit down the CEO and I say, look, would you rather have 1 million followers, but none of those followers do business with you? Or would you rather have 10,000 followers and those 10,000 followers do business with you and will continue to come back and spend money with you? More often than not, the answer that I'll get is I'd rather have those 10,000 highly engaged followers that are doing business with me as opposed to the million people that follow me that aren't really spending any money with my company. So I mention that to say that you've got to focus on the metrics that matter to your business, less so the metrics that matter to the social media platforms. So for instance, if you are interested in brand awareness, I would focus less on things like impressions. That just shows whether a content has been in your feed. And I like to look at metrics like engagement rate, which actually shows me if my followers have engaged with the content. That to me is a better proxy of awareness than whether someone has seen or the content has been in their feed. If you're focused on conversions, I'm much more interested in the conversions per post, right? As opposed to the amount of followers or impressions that you get per post. So what I'm driving at is there's lots of different metrics that you can look at in social media. Focus on the ones that are tied to your goals and that are indicating whether or not social media is creating value for you or not. That's where I'd be spending my time with metrics.
And do you see videos playing a more important role than static content?
Yeah. This is a fascinating question because it brings up the algorithms on social media platforms. And whether it be Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, now X, or Facebook, any major social media platform, you name it, they all use algorithms to make determinations on what content goes in your feed. And one of the reasons why these platforms use algorithms is to ostensibly serve you more relevant, engaging content so that you as a user will spend more time on the platform. These platforms all want you to spend more time on the platform. Another way that platforms get you to spend more time on the platform is by getting you to watch videos. Videos just drive more time spent.
Yeah.
So, looking at it from a brand's perspective, if you want your content to reach your audience, you got to work through the algorithm to get there, to get to your audience. And one of the forms of content that increasingly these social media algorithms value very highly is video content because it keeps users on the platform longer.
Yeah.
So videos matter because the algorithms value videos. And if you want to reach your audience, you got to go through the algorithms. That's just the game, whether we like it or not. That's the game that we have to play in social media management.
And I was really surprised in one of the classes that we had at MIT that we were able to access 5 years before a time capsule of what that cohort thought, what would be the social media at the time that we were discussing in class this year, this past year, in 2023. So in your opinion, how social media will be in 5 years from now?
Yes, it's a fascinating question. I don't think anyone can accurately predict the future. That's very, very difficult. I do feel confident in saying that social media will continue to grow and will continue to be an omnipresent force in the business world. And that if you are building a brand B2C or B2B, and if you're not thinking about at the highest levels of the company how to use social media today, you are going to be left behind in 5 years because the smart, effective companies are the ones that are going to be approaching this space very strategically as a critical asset in building and monetizing customer relationships. So I look 5 years down the line, social media will be here. It will be different. I've been doing this long enough to know how much it changes, but it will still be a critical part of the business and especially e-commerce landscape. So the time is now to look at it from a strategic perspective so that you're in position to capitalize on whatever future changes happen in the space.
And if you could give us three takeaways that you could share with the brands that are looking for to implement those strategies using Celia services or some other agencies, what would you recommend?
Well, first and foremost, you have to start with the goal. Seems so simple and obvious, but I can't tell you how many companies don't do that. They don't prioritize the goals, or they just simply don't have one. And it's not just about the goal, it's about how you're going to measure your effectiveness against that goal. So that's point number one, absolutely critical. Have a goal and specific success metrics that are tied to that goal. The second takeaway is about the importance of creative content and storytelling. This isn't just about taking traditional catalogs and advertisements and then putting them on social media. This is about telling stories about your brands and your products in a way that humanizes your company and connects with your customers. The third takeaway is about experimentation. What works today may not work tomorrow, and you got to be okay with that. Social media is incredibly dynamic, and the key to success is to experiment a lot and to collect data to see what's working and what isn't, and to make changes accordingly. So those are the takeaways for me. Number one, being clear on your goals and the metrics tied to those goals. Number two, creating content that tells stories, that builds relationships with your customers. And then number three, experiment, test and learn, and you'll get better that way.
As a last question, AI.
Yes.
There's a buzz.
Sure.
There's like a run for AI.
Yeah.
And now you can use GPT to produce any type of text with really good quality of the output. And you can do that using imaging on Midjourney and some others. And now there's like the version 5.0 coming, which will maybe have both solutions together. And you have the Copilot from Microsoft. You have a lot of solutions on the, voice assistant or customer support using AI. When we talk about social media, do you see AI disrupting that market in every single stage of the funnel, from the awareness until the bottom of the funnel when customers are closing to buy items?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I do believe that we're still very early in the AI transformation. So much is unknown, so it's an exciting time. And yes, I do think it's going to disrupt every part of social media management. One thing that I am reflecting on is how important the human still is. And the human still has to identify what the problem they're trying to solve is, and the AI can help them solve that problem. So in the creative problem solving process, the human still plays an important role. Secondly, I am reflecting on, yes, AI is going to help creators, brands, write a blog post in 15 seconds or create an image for Instagram in 5 seconds. And it can do all these things. But is that blog post or is that image going to be engaging to the audience? I think that's still an open question, right? How the audience will respond to AI-generated content. We shall see on that. And then my final point on AI as it relates to social media is that we're going to continue to see even more personalized experiences. By the way, the news feeds that we were talking about right now, those are powered by AI. I mean, AI has already been a part of social media for a long time. So I think we'll continue to see even more personalized experiences delivered through AI, not only via social media, but certainly across all different types of customer-facing e-commerce experiences as well. So it's an exciting time. It is going to be a fascinating time, a complex time. But I just encourage you and all of your customers to experiment, test, and learn with this technology as well.
Okay. And well, that was the last question, but
Sure.
by I was traveling in your line of reasoning, and then I found something that was thoughtful, which was, do you think that D2C is a standard way that the brands will need to connect direct with customers, because social media or marketplaces may bias their assortment selling?
Sure.
What's your opinion about this?
Yeah, I think that is a real potential outcome. It becomes, in my opinion, a content distribution challenge, right? And if you are distributing your content, your products, your service through only one platform, then strategically, as we like to say in the States, you've got all your eggs in one basket. What that means to me is that you've got to diversify your distribution platforms. It may be this marketplace. It may be through your owned and operated channels. It may be through partnerships with other brands. It may be through partnerships with well-known people. The point that I'm making is that to get around that particular challenge that you laid out, you would have to diversify your distribution strategy so that you become discoverable by your customers in a variety of platforms and channels. And that's not going to be static either, right?
Okay.
I've seen this in social media for a long time, where you rely so much on one platform, that platform changes, and then what are you left with?
Yeah.
So this importance of diversifying your distribution channels and platforms, I think, will become even more important in an AI future.
Okay, Ben, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you,
for
Angelo.
these insights. You inspired me a lot, and I know that the audience will have a lot of takeaways to put into practice. So thanks for being in Brazil and for visiting our facility here in Cajamar, São Paulo. Hope to see you next year in Brazil. Okay?
Thank you, Angelo.
Thank you.